24 0685.
The views and opinions expressed by the following paid program are those of the program producers, and they do not reflect the views and opinion of
Global Ministries Christian Church, its staff, or management.
I'm Adrian Walker.
Good morning, good morning. I'm Alana Bearfield.
And you're listening to the third episode of Black News Hour, a new radio partnership between the Boston Globe and the historic Boston Black News. It's a space for black journalists in our newsroom to bring conversations about the news of the day directly to you, BBN listeners.
And as we approach the end of 2021, we have a couple of things on our minds. The future of Boston politics and supporting black businesses throughout the holiday season. We have a star-studded lineup of guests to help us think through both. Hodan Hashi, a co-founder of Black Boston, and Stephanie Brown James, co-founder of the Collective PAC, will be on to talk about the wave of historic elections that made Boston and Massachusetts politics more representative than ever before. Tanya Fernandez, Henderson, whose election to Boston City Council marked a ton of firsts, including the first Muslim American and the first African immigrant on the council, will also join us for an interview. And we'll close the show with Jada Turner, founder and managing director of Black-Owned Boss, and Segun Idowu, president and CEO of the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts.
Yeah, we're excited to talk to all of them. And if you'd like to ask questions to us during today's show, feel free to call us at 617-265-2679 or ask on Twitter using the hashtag Black News Hour.
And for more content like this, subscribe to our BNH newsletter. You can visit globe.com/Black News Hour. And just to recap the historic results we saw in and around Boston on election night earlier this month, Boston elected Michelle Wu as its 56th mayor. Wu is the first woman and person of color to be popularly elected mayor of the city after Kim Janey's historic term as acting mayor. Wu is also a millennial, a mother, a Taiwanese American, but the history-making and groundbreaking did not stop there.
No, the Boston City Council continues to become more diverse. We've seen the election now of Rusi Lejeune as city councilor at large, and there have been people of color elected all over the state last Tuesday, so it's really an exciting time in Massachusetts politics.
It is an exciting time, Adrian. I mean, just to see all of this happening, it's groundbreaking. I think Boston is on the path of growing. To see that it's 2021 and the thing that we continue to see in headlines is first. And it gives me goosebumps to see the changing and the momentum that is happening within our city.
I'll point out that just last night, our guest, Segun Idowu, who's going to be joining us later, is joining Mayor Wu's cabinet as Chief of Economic Development. So looking forward to talking to him about that later in the show.
Exactly. Congrats to him.
Yes.
And, if we continue to look at how Boston is changing, I think a lot of people in the public, wouldn't you agree, is happy to see these changes up forefront?
Absolutely. It's definitely a more exciting time than the normal transition. I mean, there's a feel that things are really about to change in the city in a big way.
Now, you were there when Mayor Michelle Wu was sworn in. Tell me about that environment. How was it? What were your thoughts on it?
It was really electric day in City Hall. And it was interesting just to see the different faces, the black and brown faces, around City Hall in a way that you don't normally see them. She stood up and said something that seemed really powerful to me. She talked about the first time she ever set foot in Boston City Hall and how she felt invisible. And you could see that, and it really captured the kind of transition we're about to see, where people who felt invisible in city government for years are about to really take ownership.
Exactly. Ownership and just be about that change. Adrian, you've been covering politics in Boston for years now. And as a black man, what does these changes mean to you?
Well, we'll see somewhat what it's going to mean, but it's definitely an exciting time, and it's definitely going to be a lot different than what we've seen before. And we're going to see a government that reflects Boston and where it is now, which has not been the case in the last few years.
Mm-hmm. And, we're going to be talking to Hadan Hashi, who's another person that is, who's going to bring light to this conversation on what Mayor Michelle Wu is really talking about and what she's going to bring forefront.
Yeah, and I think it's great that we're going to have on the show a couple of people who've really been involved in what's been a true grassroots effort. We talk about the politicians and the people who won, but, aside from them, there are so many people who have been involved in laying the groundwork for this and making this possible.
Mm-hmm. Really excited to be talking to Hadan, who, she is one of the co-founders of Black Boston, and it was created last summer where they got together a lot of young people, millennials like myself, who really want to be an advocate for social justice.
One of the big things here is just what a generational change it's going to be. Mm-hmm. Aside from all the other first mayor Wu represents, it's really something. It's really striking. 10 years ago, we had a 70-year-old mayor who'd never sent an email. who proudly
speak
said
on it. Go ahead, Adrian.
He'd never sent an email and saw no reason to. Mm-hmm. And and now we're going to have like 30-somethings run in Boston for the first time ever, really. And it's really going to be, as I wrote the other day, it's going to be different in ways we've only even begun to think about.
It makes me excited.
I'm sure it does. I saw Segun at the swearing in before I knew he was going into the administration. It's like, I'm 33. I think this is great. So it's a real changing of the guard.
Mm-hmm. We're on the right path, and just to see also how social media is playing a part of it, right. With the different campaigns and the videos that are out there, and seeing the visibility of these politicians being at the forefront once again of doing the changes, making the policies. I think social media has played a huge part in 2021.
In the course of covering this campaign, I had to learn what TikTok is.
Okay. How was that, Adrian?
Oh, it's been fun.
Yeah,
I won't be on it anytime soon, but
yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out with the moves. It'd be too much sometimes.
Yeah, it's a little much for me.
But thank you so much for everyone who's listening and tuning in today. We have once again an amazing show ahead of us, just really breaking down what the mayor election means, especially in 2021, and what Mayor Michelle Wu is going to be doing in the future, and also that the holiday season is approaching and that we should be giving back into Black-owned businesses.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's something that's really important. And Black Friday is coming, and
yes,
all those decisions about where we're going to spend our dollars.
Big decisions.
Decisions.
I hope everybody's having their list, writing it down, checking it twice.
That's right. I'm a December 21st shopper myself, but I'll try to do better this year.
Adrian, you need to do better.
Yes, I know.
We all need to do better. I think our listeners too.
Yes.
There's always those late for people that are going into the store trying to find what can you get, left and right. But
this year with the supply chain problems, you don't want to wait till the last minute. You want to make your plans now.
Exactly. So we do have a call. And I'm really excited to listen to one of our callers and to see what their perspective is and from the community. Okay. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, this is Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie. Thank you so much for joining us today. For everyone who's listening in right now, we are talking to Stephanie Brown James, who is one of the co-founders of Collective PAC. And thank you so much once again for joining us.
I'm so excited to talk with you all today and just to listen to the conversation already.
Yes. I think it would be really great for you just to share your insight on the impact of what Collective PAC is. You all are really one of the game changers of bringing Black candidates in the community to help them run for office. Why did you think it was so important to be involved with the Collective PAC?
Well, when my husband Quentin and I started the Collective PAC in 2016, that was a time where there was a lot of unrest around the country between Michael Brown's murder, the uprisings we saw in Baltimore following the murder by police there. We just saw that in so many communities we did not have the representation we needed as Black people in positions of power. We continue to have in this country over 90% of all elected officials are Black. Now, are white. Now, that is going to be a number that changes because, as we see in Boston, we have a number of cities who are electing historical first, either and mayors and city council members and state representatives. And so, we know that there's a lot of work to do because we really can't have an equitable society if we don't have fair representation of the people in those positions of power.
So how does your PAC fit into that? Tell me about what you've raised and how you spent it.
Yeah, so a lot of what we do really is to support Black candidates up and down the ticket. We're the only organization across the country that works with Black candidates on a local, state, and federal level. We actually have two sides of our organization. One is the PAC, which is purely political, and so we've invested almost $4 million to help Black candidates. We've been able to help elect over 300 candidates across the country. And in total, we've raised about over $20 million to help when it comes to Black voter engagement work, because we know that we need to turn folks out to vote, especially as we are working to have them support Black candidates. And so we were really excited to be involved in Boston. We definitely are excited to see Kendra be elected this year. We've always been supportive of Congresswoman Presley, DA Rachel Rollins, and so we have a history of making sure, especially with these Black women now, that we are trying to really get them into these positions across Massachusetts.
Exactly. What you just said about being a Black woman and being in the middle of it and understanding why the representation and diversity is such needed right now. How can listeners support these efforts? How can they be more involved?
I think a couple of ways. One is, what we're seeing now is, those folks who are the PTA moms and the school teachers and the nurses are saying, hey, I actually want to sign up to run for office. And so if that is you and you're interested, please go to collectivepac.org to run. I think what we've noticed is that the folks who are closest to the ground are the best representatives for their communities, those who are already active and involved. The second thing is, please give to a Black candidate. There is a huge financial discrepancy in how much Black candidates and especially Black women raise compared to their counterparts. We know that Black women alone are 4 times more likely to get outraised if they are in a race with a white woman, let alone if they're in a race against a white man. And then we also just know that, our candidates need support. Unfortunately, when there was the flyer that candidate Mary Tamer sent out when she was running against Kendra Hicks, that really was had a very heavy racist tone to it. We put out a condemnation statement to say, no, we need to not have this type of, long-standing, unfortunately, racist trope out in our mails. And we need to support Kendra, and we need to back up these Black candidates who get a lot of attacks coming their way. So, that's just donate, run, and support candidates are the 3 best things that folks can do.
What are some of the ways to kind of boost turnout? One of the things I've been concerned about is low turnout, which is true in Boston as it is in many other major cities. I mean, turnout in New York was a disgrace too. How do we get people more engaged?
Yeah, unfortunately, Boston had a little less than 29% voter turnout in this historic election with so many important races going on. One, listen, the country is in a difficult situation with so much going on from COVID and the economy and just the infighting that I think everybody is tired of seeing in Congress especially. But the biggest thing is the issues. We need to make sure that candidates, one, come from the communities that they want to represent, that they reflect and respect those communities, so they can have a conversation on a daily basis with their neighbors, their residents, and talk about real issues. Talk about, how can we have better education in our schools? How can we get parents more involved in schools? How can, we have more high-paying jobs, have living wages? I think folks are tired of the rhetoric, and they're tired of also only being talked to around Election Day. Right. Voting and civic engagement is a 365-day job that we all need to take part in and have these crucial conversations of also how the community can be involved in being decision makers for themselves.
It definitely is 365 days. It's clockwork all around. You have to put the work in. You have to go to the doors. You have to knock on the doors. You have to be in the middle of those conversations ongoing. Exactly. It doesn't just stop by posting a flyer. And I agree with you 100%. With voter turnout, a lot of people were upset that we didn't have a Black candidate, win. And the Black community was there was a lot of conversations happening on social media. So I want to get your perspective on why you didn't think a Black candidate didn't win and why the Black community didn't show up.
I think part of this is being really realistic about the numbers, and I'm just going to be as honest as possible. When you have big races, or when you have even races that you see the numbers are going to be tight, it's pretty difficult to have in some races more than one Black person running, because there is this thing about splitting the vote, splitting up the community, and part of that too is just really having to make sure that you have the right person for the right time running for the position, and then you have to work your tail off. You do have to show up, but not show up just for election time. You have to have already been there in the community. I tell you, Black folks can smell something funny a mile away, and by funny I mean something that is out of isn't a constant presence. And so I think that's super important. And we just got to get strategic about who's running, where, and why. So that we saw this in Virginia, gubernatorial race. We had 2 Black women running for governor of Virginia and a Black man in that race. And we saw what happened in Virginia. So it's not just a Boston thing. It's something that we've seen across the country.
Mm-hmm. It's worldwide, definitely. Hopefully these changes we can continue to make and continue to just uplift one another. But I think we are doing the groundwork. I mean, just look at the new administration. There's so many people that look like me and look like you. It makes me happy. Totally.
Yeah. And that's also the important thing. As crazy as the world is now, as dysfunctional as government seems often, and as much as it seems like we're not having the representation we need, or we're not building Black political power, we are making progress. And progress does not happen overnight, but it is happening. And I think it's important to stay hopeful, stay mindful of that, continue to support these folks who are stepping out, because it is not easy to run for office. To basically put a target on your back for people to come attack you on social media and the like. So, again, that's why that support of our Black candidates is so important, but also remaining vigilant and remaining hopeful that we're on the right path.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you see that in the Boston City Council, which has changed so much. It used to be, for years it would be like one Black councilor from Roxbury and one from Dorchester, and it's really changed. And it's just because of the constant vigilance and people doing the kind of work you're doing.
And what I love is I travel around the country now, and Boston has become a city that folks are looking at as an example. If they can do it in Boston,
I love it.
Yeah, I know. If they can do it in Boston,
we can do it anywhere. Literally,
we can do it in Cleveland. Exactly.
No, but it's true.
Totally.
We appreciate all the work that you've been doing. Once again, just being an advocate for so many people. What do you hope to see in the future? I mean, of course, to have more Black candidates, but what else, is there any changes that we can do to help you?
One thing I'd really like to see is, one, I'm really hoping Danielle Allen wins governor of Massachusetts. We've never, ever, ever in the history of this country had a Black woman governor. I think this go around we're going to have at least 4 to 5 Black women running across the country. So I am looking forward to finally seeing America have a Black female governor. But also, I really am looking forward to that voter participation rate going up. And I believe that the power of community, people coming back together as, folks are navigating this new COVID world and hopefully being more neighborly. I really hope that we're going to see this focus on the issues, and that being what really connects voters to the process, and that they see their power. And nobody is more important than the voter and the political process. They literally can determine who the decision makers are, not for their community, for their own lives. Because when you wake up in the morning, from the water that you drink to the school bus your kid gets on, to how high your grass has to be, these are decisions that are made by somebody. And as voters, we need to be the one in the driving seat when it comes to making these decisions.
One last question. Let me ask you about the midterms that are coming up. What's going to be the key for Black candidates to be successful in 2022?
Well, it's funny. When we started in 2016, we had endorsed 5 candidates. One of them was Kamala Harris, was one of the first people we endorsed. 2018 was a historic year where we saw 7 Black candidates run for Congress. This is going to be a historic year where we see more Black people running for statewide offices and for Congress than ever before. a drastic shift. We can have upwards of 20 to 30 to 40 black candidates running for Congress across the country, which is really an unprecedented number. We have the potential to elect 5 black senators. We only have 3 currently sitting. None of them are black women. And so what I am really hopeful to see and really what we're working towards is that equity of representation. We cannot have a country that functions for all Americans if 90% of our elected officials are white and 95% of prosecutors are white. That is unacceptable in this land of democracy. And so we're really working hard to change that so it's reflective of the people.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I enjoyed this conversation deeply. Everyone continue to keep up with Stephanie. She's doing the work with Collective PAC. Once again, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm so honored. I appreciate it and wish y'all the best.
Yes.
Thanks so much.
Have a nice day.
You too. Bye-bye.
So, Adrian, I am deeply excited because to the right of me is the one and only Hodan Hashi, who is doing the work. Girl, yes. Trying. Hodan Hashi is the co-founder of Black Boston, where you guys created this last summer. Hodan is 23? 23, okay. And she's at the forefront of being an advocate for social justice and bringing community events to Black and brown people. So once again, really excited to be sitting here with you and to start this conversation.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So just to break down for Black Boston, what really sparked the initiative to get this rolling? I know because of the wake of George Floyd, that really kind of woke up the Black community, woke up the whole world of what we needed to do when it comes to police brutality. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, definitely. So when we were starting Black Boston, obviously it was just after the murder of George Floyd, but I think so many other factors kind of played into that. It was kind of during the height of the pandemic, and for young people, like I had just graduated from school and just struggling to kind of find my place in the world and like feeling like all of these extra burdens kind of were placed on me. And just being on social media, I think social media was such a catalyst, I think, for the movement that we built because we were able to interact with so many people our age all over the country and really have these serious conversations about what issues we see and how we can kind of play a role in solving a lot of these problems. And I think in a lot of ways just felt very empowered in that moment to use our voices collectively because I think being 22, I was 21 at the time, but being 21 at the time, I felt like my voice individually didn't hold as much weight, if that makes sense. And just having conversations of if we all were to come together, maybe like our voices would be heard. And in a lot of ways, this starting Black Boston was kind of my opportunity to make young Black voices heard and let people know that we, are very involved in these conversations. We do know what's going on and we do have these strong opinions and things that we want to change, and just kind of giving people my age the platform to be able to feel empowered to do so.
Well, tell me what you think about the election and the incoming mayor. What are you hoping for? What are you looking for?
I think this election cycle was definitely super exciting for so many reasons, especially being a young person. This was the first race that I think I was like actively involved in. It was like the first time that I was super engaged in local politics. I think there was this idea in my head, at least, I can't speak for everyone, but in my head that like I studied political science in school, and when I was in school we learned about like everything at the national level, didn't really talk too much about the local level. And I think this election was so special in so many ways because it engaged so many people from so many different areas, whether it's young people, old people, and kind of showed us that Boston can look like the people who live in the city and not just the people who have controlled the city for so long. And so I'm super excited to see kind of in the next couple of months, in the next couple of years, how the voices that have been so loud for the last year and a half are included in this conversation, and how that kind of can bring more power and more voice to the communities that have been like disenfranchised the most in the past.
Now, Black Boston has a team just to focus on politics, to really political advocacy. And to put, politicians to calling them out, holding them accountable. What do you think for Mayor Michelle Wu? How can she help your cause?
No, that's a great question. I think part of it is just like reassuring our community. And when I speak, I tend to speak on behalf of like younger Black people who maybe aren't as involved in politics, maybe have felt like there's not a place for them in politics, maybe feel like whatever kind of career avenue they've chosen doesn't kind of interact with politics in the way that maybe I see that it potentially could. And so for us, it's like a lot of the work that we want to do is really changing what that conversation looks like and changing what it means to be politically engaged, changing how we think about who's allowed to be politically engaged, and kind of showing people that everyone kind of can be involved in politics in one way or another, and it doesn't always have to look the same. And so I'm super excited to kind of be able to work with Michelle Wu to start those conversations and engage communities that we typically leave out of this conversation.
It often feels like people get involved right around election time.
Yeah.
And then kind of go away after.
Yeah.
Their side wins.
Yeah.
How do you keep people engaged?
I think it's about community. I think it's about trust. I think it's about meeting people where they are. A lot of kind of what I've learned just building this organization was that you do have to kind of meet people where they are. You have to give people a reason to trust you and a reason to believe what you're saying, and kind of keep having that conversation of, okay, 3 months ago, this is where we are, like this is where we were, where are we now, how are we feeling about what we've put in place so far, and just centering community and all of that, and centering love, trust, all of those things I think are super important to add to this conversation.
Trust is a big one, but we're going to hold that conversation right here. We have a caller. I was really excited to hear from them.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'd like to make a comment, a question. First, my comment, it's good for people to talk and to have communication, but that's only one half of the equation. The second half is also listening. Let me repeat. It's good to talk, but that's only one half of the equation. The second half is listening. Without that listening, the talk will be for nothing, period. Because there's two sides to every story. And my next question is, what is your guess's version of this so-called social justice?
That's a great question. Hodan, just what your version of social justice, how does that look to you right now?
I think social justice can mean different things to different people. I think for me, it's showing up as authentically as you can to kind of work towards building like a more equal society. I think in a lot of ways, and I think when I started Black Boston, I fell into this trap of believing that to be a social justice advocate or to work in the area of social justice, I saw it as kind of being an organizer or leading marches or things like that. And I think as time goes and as I'm kind of filling out this new space that I'm a part of, I'm realizing that it's just about showing up however you can in whatever spaces that you're in, and just using your voice to speak on behalf of or kind of elevate the voices of the people who are the most marginalized.
Showing up authentically.
Yeah.
And being you and bringing your whole self to the table. And I think when we speak about the table, it's like bringing the chair for other Black, brown, women, men to that table to, advocate for themselves, bring those different ideas and so forth. When we continue to look at, you're only 23, you continue to put the groundwork. So Black Boston also has pop-ups, workshops, educational programs. How can people get involved? And is there any future events that you're hosting? So in terms of involvement, we are always kind of looking to add people to the team. We
for every event that we do, we always kind of allow people to show up however they can. Like I just said, like people can kind of come in the way that they can. So we have volunteer opportunities always available, opportunities to help us create events. We're always looking to collaborate with as many different organizations as possible and really try to figure out how we can bring the conversation that we're having into as many spaces as possible. And in terms of upcoming events, we have a couple events coming up in January. And the best way to kind of keep in contact with us is on Instagram or on Twitter at Black Boston 2020, and then via email. But we are kind of building out our schedule for early spring and are super excited to kind of start these conversations in more unique ways and really figure out how we can engage with more people that we haven't even had the chance to speak to yet. So, yeah.
You know, I've talked a few times about keeping the conversation going. What are the things we're not talking about that we should be?
That's a great question.
Great question.
There's
Adrian.
a lot of things there's a lot of things we should be talking about. I think one thing that you brought up earlier is how when something happens, we have all of these conversations and it's like a huge thing. And I think one thing that I would like to see happen a little bit more in Boston is to try to continue those conversations for a little bit longer and really try to see how these issues are affecting people in different ways. I think one thing as a Black person is I think a lot of the times we speak about our struggles as if they're a monolith, as if we all struggle in the same way and with the same things. And just in the last year, I think my eyes have been opened so much to how a lot of the things that even I've spoken about have affected other people in different ways that I wouldn't have even thought of. And I think having that conversation of how multi-layered issues actually are and how connected all of them actually are in ways that we don't always think about. And also just giving young people kind of more space at that table, that like theoretical table.
Yes, the big
That table we always talk about. Yes.
That table we haven't seen, but we all talk about it. I think I walk into so many spaces and I'm typically the youngest person in that room and people are like, oh my God, you're so young. And for me, I always think about how can I bring people who are even younger than me into this space? Like when we're talking about elections, when we're talking about being politically engaged, a lot of people think, oh, like when someone turns 18, like that's when, you know, they get involved in politics. But I think in the last year I have had the chance to speak to the most brilliant, like 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds. And at the end of the day, like the Boston that we're building, like is going to be their Boston in a couple of years. And so really thinking about how we can bring them to the table and include them in this conversation because they have ideas that even I'm like, whoa, that's crazy.
Whoa.
But that's so smart. And I think really working on that is super important and something I'm excited to really work on in the next year or so.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not like a switch goes off when you're 18.
Right.
And it's almost how we think about it.
Yeah.
I mean,
definitely.
the fact that you said 14, 15.
My sister is 7 years old and
Wow.
she could be sitting here right with me and she would be fully engaged in this conversation. So I think like I remember being 14 and 15 and feeling like I had all these opinions and I felt all of these things and was at a point where I could finally start putting them in words in a way that like made sense, but didn't feel kind of that empowerment to be able to say, this is what I think, this is why I think it, because I just felt like in any room that I was in, I was like too young to have that conversation. But I feel like if I had that like mentorship or if I kind of had that empowerment at a younger age, I would have been able to speak about so many of these things. And so I feel it in me to like give that space to younger people, kind of create those spaces that I wish I had growing up. And that's kind of what Black Boston has always been centered in, is like really creating those spaces and building those networks and those resources that I like wish that I had when I was growing up, and making sure that kids younger than me do have access to those spaces. And like that's really all I can do in this space.
Yeah, creating a safe space at that, where people can just be with one another and to know that you see someone that looks like you. I mean, that goes a long way of when you picking different colleges and having those open conversations. But as a minority woman in Boston living here, you talked about that how you're young and sometimes people don't maybe not listen to you when you're at that table. What other challenges have you faced?
Damn.
A lot.
Listen, I think just like being a young Black woman I think being in high school and being in college, especially like being a young Black woman in predominantly white spaces, I, for so long questioned whether my voice belonged in so many rooms, questioned whether I was smart enough to be in certain rooms, if I was eloquent enough, all these questions kind of in the back of your head. And you kind of start telling yourself the same things that you're hearing, if that makes sense. And I remember being in college and being like, but what makes me kind of any different from anybody else who could say these things? Like anybody could say this, like why me? And I think with starting Black Boston, in a lot of ways, I think because we had started during the pandemic, a lot of that like outside noise was almost silenced, if that makes sense. It was kind of just me in my room. And I think one thing that I've definitely struggled with in a lot of ways was like believing that I could do it, which I think a lot of people don't talk about as much, is I had to like kind of sit with myself and be like, you are going to face these challenges. There are people who think that I'm too young to be in this space. There are people who think that maybe I'm not politically engaged enough or haven't been in the past, or, so many different things that people use to kind of silence my voice. But I think it came down to like, do you believe that your voice is important in this space? And then kind of the why, I think, is what really kind of kicks in after that, is like, why are you doing this work? And who is this work going to be benefiting? Because it's not me at the end of the day. It's the people who don't even have the privilege and the opportunities to be in spaces like this. And for me, it's always been like remembering that part and kind of using that to kind of drive through everything else.
Hold on. Thank you so much. I enjoyed every single second of this and hope to have you on the show in the future, because once again, Black Boston is about doing the work, and you're doing the work, and you're advocating for people that look like you. Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Right now, you are listening to Black News Hour. We have a star-studded lineup, and if you like to ask us questions, please feel free to call 617-265-2679 or tag us on Twitter using the hashtag Black News Hour. We are going to take a break right now, and we'll continue with the great lineup.
give the narrative. It is imperative that the truth about us, we give. No more trying to get ratings with the hating. No more fake news. Now we can choose Boston Black News.
Hello, you are listening to Black News Hour, and before we sit down with the amazing Segun Idowu, we want to tell you about what's happening right now with the Boston Globe. Since the holidays are just around the corner, now's the time to start thinking about giving back. Globe Santa, a program of the Boston Globe Foundation, has delivered holiday gifts to Greater Boston's children in need since 1956, and the number of families requesting assistance has continued to grow. Consider providing families with gifts or donations this holiday season. Through the thoughtfulness of our contributors and volunteers, all donations go directly to support Globe Santa. Visit globesanta.org to learn more. So, congrats are in order. Right? How are you feeling right now?
Well, hang on, we need to tell our listeners.
I know.
So, Segun, I understand you are joining the Wu Train. You're going into the administration as Chief Economic,
Chief of Economic
Opportunity.
Yeah.
What does a Chief of Economic Opportunity do, sir?
Well, first of all, I have to say thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. And this was not planned. Originally was coming here to talk about the work we're doing at BECMA and the Mass Black Expo this weekend. And this all just kind of happened pretty suddenly. But the Chief of Economic Opportunity, or the former role, Economic Development, they're focused on making Boston a more equitable place to live and play and visit, and making sure that we are building wealth for all of the people that live here. So I'm looking forward to that, because that was our work at BECMA, and now we get to take it to City Hall.
Great.
Definitely looking forward to it. Really excited. We have a caller right now. Excited to listen to them. I know, right? Hello. Can you hear me? Hello?
Hello?
Hi. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Of course. So do you, what is your question?
That's Jada.
Madam Turner.
Hi, Jada. Jada Turner.
Hi. Yes, good morning.
Yes, Black-owned Boston. How are you today?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
Good. So we're continuing with the conversation about giving back and why it's important for Black-owned businesses to thrive right now, especially because of the pandemic and economic development. So Black-owned Boston is another safe space for Black and Brown people to get together. You've done so many workshops and pop-up shops and so forth. So Jada, can you tell a little bit more about what you do on that end of everything?
100%. So Black-owned Boss is a platform to highlight and lift Black-owned businesses, places, spaces in the greater Boston area. And really consider it kind of just like a connection, to be honest, connecting new customers with new businesses and connecting businesses with new customers, new neighborhoods, new spaces for them to share their work, their passions, and the businesses that they have to grow more better and more equitable kind of business community.
Give a little advice to our listeners who would like to shop black this holiday season.
Yeah, it's all about kind of being intentional. And I think there's a lot of opportunities that make it very easy to do so. Shameless plug, some of the things that we're doing at Black-owned Boss. We have our 2021 holiday gift guide, which features about 30 different businesses from anything for pet goods to things for children, clothing, accessories, etc. That's available on our website, blackownedboss.com. And in the coming days, we're actually opening up a boutique on Newbury Street that'll feature over 30 brands. A lot of people know us for our pop-up shops where the brands are able to kind of represent themselves, marketplaces, but this will be a new concept, a boutique where you can shop all on one ticket, and you can shop anything from accessories to provisions, et cetera, on one of our major commercial streets in our city. So super excited about that and that new opportunity for Black Boss and the businesses that we represent.
So basically, it's a one-stop all. You just get everything,
Exactly.
literally right there and then. Absolutely.
One bag, one receipt.
Yeah, Adrian and I actually was talking about earlier that we have not started our Christmas shopping. I mean, Segun, have you? I mean, I feel like I'm kind of a last-minute person.
Well, I mean, I'm going to say I already started so that the people I'm shopping for think that I, didn't just wake up the day before. Yeah. But Jada, so I just have to say, Jada is one of the most fantastic people in the city right now, particularly for Black-owned businesses. And I know I'm not a host, but if you could talk about,
no, because
I think it's important because she's not just creating a space for these micro businesses to sell their products or their services, but can you talk about also the work that you're doing to help scale up these businesses?
Yeah, for sure. I'm assuming Segun's referring to our Retail Incubator program.
Yes.
So this program is a program that connects businesses, one with space, but with opportunity and kind of oversight, what it looks like to own and operate your business at scale in commercial districts. What are the things you need? What are the things you should be prepared for mentally, physically, et cetera? And kicked off our Retail Incubator program in February at Bow Market, which is a marketplace in Somerville, not too far out of the city. In a small space, it's 165 square feet, but it's just enough for a business that's looking to kind of see what it's like to have their own shop, see what a Tuesday looks like at 11 o'clock, because a lot of businesses that we do work with are kind of vendor market based where everybody's coming there to shop, everybody's coming there to spend money. So it's kind of about how do you shift your mindset to get people to come to you? How do you build a brand? How do you build something that people affiliate themselves with that they'll come and show up on a Wednesday at 2 p.m. and it's because they support the brand. It's because they know about what you're doing. And this comes with coaching. This comes with resources. The space is kind of outfitted with turnkey retail solutions, fixtures, et cetera, so you can get in, get out in about an hour, and that lowers the barrier to entry for somebody who wants to test this out, see if it's something that is for them. And then on the outset of it, having those conversations about how do I get there? What are the spaces that are available to me? What are the resources available to me to make an opportunity of having my own shop, my own space, a reality?
Now, I was there on Sunday at Bow Market, Feed Your Soul, for everyone listening in. And I just thought, once again, seeing all the different shops, seeing the people out there being involved, seeing the products being sold, it made me happy, to see that there's a Black-owned woman who's selling candles. Like, okay, like they're doing the thing. And Jada, I have to commend you for everything, being an advocate about that. It takes a lot of hard work, a lot of perseverance on what you're doing on your end.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that incubator program. So I'm an evangelist for a Black-owned boss, if you didn't know. And that incubator program is extremely important, especially as we're thinking about all of these empty spaces and storefronts across the city, because most small businesses fail regardless in their first 5 years, black, red, brown, white, whatever. Part of it, and when we think about our businesses, they fail because they get spaces that are too big to sell their products or services, and they're paying huge amounts in rent, and they can't afford it because they don't have the customer base, they don't have that experience of being in a space. And so Jada's program of helping people understand what it is to be in a space, to attract customers, inventory, where you store that, all that kind of stuff, is going to help make sure that when these folks scale up in a way that they get into bigger spaces, they know what they're doing, they have the needed capital, and they're there for 40 years from now, contributing to our community. So excellent program. I'm very happy that she's doing it.
Yes, again, I have a question for you, though. Talk about how Black businesses have been affected by the pandemic and how they're coming out of it.
Yeah, well, we were in a bad place before the pandemic, right? The same issues that exist right now existed before the pandemic: access to capital, inventory, staffing, et cetera. And so where we are now is we still need that capital. The last time a lot of our businesses at BECMA got money was in December when Governor Baker put out the grant programs to help our folks out. They haven't seen any money since, including restaurants. You had a lot of restaurants, black restaurants in August that were closed for that month, which was ironic because it was Black Business Month. And these businesses had to close their doors because they didn't get any money. So how we're getting out of it, BECMA itself has been giving out money. We're working with partners to get money to our folks, but also, putting them through training and through our back office support program, helping folks get their infrastructure together so their accounting is in place, that they have the legal support that they need, getting them up online so that they're engaging with their customers in that way. So lots of ways that we're supporting our business members and making sure that when we emerge out of the pandemic, because we're not there yet, that we are in a better place than we were at the beginning.
It's definitely challenging to try to get money, especially for a Black-owned business, and especially with that PPP loan. Sometimes that doesn't go the right way. I've known that some Black businesses got it, some didn't. What are ways that they can really get money? I know BECMA is a great place, but what other resources are out there that people, Black-owned businesses, should be looking for?
Well, I'm gonna reverse the question and put it back on the people who have the money, because Black people know where the money resides. Right? we know where it is, right? The problem, so like at BECMA, we don't talk about access to capital. We talk about the dispersal of capital, because the people that have the money just don't give it to us for many various reasons. Racism being part of it.
All right. So what's the city going to do about that?
Well, exactly. So I'll say, I've not started in the city role yet. Incredibly, humbled and proud to have been appointed to this role, but I've not yet. But I will say, to folks who were in the role before, Boston actually was one of the best at getting money to our folks, especially last year, where they used community block development grant money to get, and they set up a program where it was straightforward, which I can't say that for every other grant program or whatever, where, it was very clear. If you've got less than 5 employees, you're getting $5,000. If you've got less than 10 employees, you're getting $10,000. If you got more than that, you're getting $20,000. And so everyone knew what they were getting, and they pumped that money out quick. Quicker than other places. So and I know that under Mayor Janey, they had another grant program, and they're processing those. So what is the city going to do? It's going to keep making sure that not only is the city getting money to people, but then making sure that our private sector friends are putting money in the pot to help our folks out, working with state government to get that money where it needs to go, and then with these federal dollars as well, making sure that we're supporting our businesses in that way.
Jada, I want to turn to you and just to see how you put together your organization and everything on your end. When I was reading about you a little bit on your inside of that, you kind of sparked because of Trayvon Martin, the passing of him. Where do you see the vision of Boston? Where do you see Boston going?
I'm actually hopeful. I think that this is kind of like the first time in my lifetime it's been like I've been able to be in spaces where I'm seeing change actually happen. I'm seeing people put in the places where they can do the work that makes the most sense. For example, Segun and other folks. But it's like there are these kind of like breadcrumbs that provide this sense of hope of people are taking this seriously. People are trying to bring the right people to the table to figure out solutions, to figure out what the problem is. I think that's the first start, is what is the problem? Who do we need around the table to write these solutions, and where are the resources that we can place to make them happen? Because I think a lot of times problems were trying to be solved in a vacuum, in silos, without including the people that need the problem solving. So I think the right solutions will be provided to the right people in the very near future, and I have actual hope in that right now. So it's an exciting time, and I'm excited to see how these changes kind of impact the kind of landscape of Boston. And I would say with Black-owned Boss, like this was something that I just took upon myself, just as a person, as a citizen, as someone who was a part of the business community, of how do I use the power, how do I use the experience and influence that I have, and make a change in my own space. And as people start to have more awareness about that, how Black-owned Bar starts to grow as a platform, I think that helps to kind of just show that individual people are concerned about this, individual people and organizations and businesses are making impact, and our municipalities, governments, larger private institutions who have the resources and the power to do so should also be doing this at a larger scale. So I think it's like being a role model as a citizen has been a great opportunity.
What can people do to support Black-owned Boss?
So it's all about kind of making connections. Strategic partnerships is really how we grow and scale the platform that we have. So whether it's landlords, whether it's developers, whether it's people that have space, people that have resources, and they're looking to disperse them to a diverse population to kind of shake up who's taking up space in their neighborhoods, in their main streets, et cetera, make those connections, connect those folks to Black-owned Boss, share resources, share opportunities, and just attend the events and activations and pop-up shops that we have, patronize the holiday gift guide, just engage with the content that we have. So as a business, we have these opportunities for other businesses, our vendor partners, to participate in, but we view our clients as the folks that are looking to either diversify their portfolios of real estate or the folks that are looking to diversify their portfolios of the people that they're spending their business dollars with. Our vendor partners are truly partners because they're building out this kind of just ecosystem of businesses that we have, because we're able to say that we have somebody in the space that does children's feeding essentials. We have somebody who does pet goods. We have somebody who does candles. We have a large, diverse portfolio where it's like, you can't say that you couldn't find this type of business because
you have it all.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Jada. We really appreciate you calling in. This is a really exciting conversation. Also, for our listeners, Mass Black Expo is this weekend, so go on their website, get involved. Really great things right now. For all of our Black News Hour listeners, we are back again in another month. So stay tuned for all of the great stuff that we continue to break barriers and talk about the Black community. I'm Alana Bearfield.
I'm Adrian Walker.
And thank you so much, Segun.
Thank you.